Hey, seventh grade. Um, my homeroom class has already heard this being read, but not everybody got a chance to hear it. And I'd really like for all of seventh grade who wants to be involved in the read aloud to be involved. I'm going to read books to my homeroom class all year long, and I'd like for everybody to have access to that if possible. I'm starting with one of my very favorite books, The Outsiders. It's written by S.E. Hinton, which is a girl. S.E. stands for Susan Eloise. She was 15 when she wrote this book, and she wrote it based off of her real life experiences, what she witnessed going on in her neighborhood and in her school. And she really wanted to bring attention to the fact that even though there are um, people from different walks of life with different circumstances, different amounts of money, that really, when it comes down to it, we're all people, we're all human, and we just have some basic similarities. So anyway, it's one of my very favorite books, and I hope that you enjoy it too. I'm going to read chapter 1 today. If you were in my homeroom class, you've already heard this. You don't have to watch it again. Um, when I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I was wishing I looked like Paul Newman. He looks tough, and I don't. But I guess my own looks aren't so bad. I have light brown, almost red hair and greenish gray eyes. I wish they were more gray, because I hate most guys that have green eyes. But I have to be content with what I have. My hair is longer than a lot of boys wear theirs, squared off in back and long at the front and sides, but I'm a greaser, and most of my neighborhood rarely bothers to get a haircut. Besides, I look better with long hair. I had a long walk home and no company, but I usually loan it anyway, for no reason except that I like to watch movies undisturbed so I can get into them and live them with the actors. When I see a movie with someone, it's kind of uncomfortable, like having someone read your book over your shoulder. I'm different that way. I mean, my second oldest brother, Soda, he's 16 going on 17. He never cracks a book at all. And my oldest brother, Daryl, who we call Derry, works too long and too hard to be interested in a story or drawing a picture. So I'm not like them. And nobody in our gang digs movies and books the way I do. For a while there, I thought I was the only person in the world that did. So I loaned it. Soda tries to understand, at least, which is more than Derry does. But then, Soda's different from anybody. He understands everything almost. Like, he's never hollering at me all the time, the way Derry is, or treating me as if I were 6 instead of 14. I love Soda more than I've ever loved anyone, even Mom and Dad. He's always happy-go-lucky and grinning, while Derry's hard and firm and rarely grins at all. But then, Derry's gone through a lot in his 20 years, grown up too fast. Soda Pop will never grow up at all, and I don't know which way's the best. I'll find out one of these days. Anyway, I went on walking home thinking about the movies and then suddenly wishing I had some company. Greasers can't walk alone too much, or someone will come by and scream, "Greaser!" at them, which doesn't make you feel too hot, if you know what I mean. We get jumped by the socias. I'm not sure how you spell it, but it's the abbreviation for the socials, the jet set, the West Side rich kids. It's like the term greaser, which is used to class all us boys on the East Side. We're poorer than the socias, and the middle class. I reckon we're wilder, too. Not like the socias who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts for kicks and get editorials in the paper for being a public disgrace one day and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things and drive old souped-up cars and hold up gas stations and have a gang fight once in a while. I don't mean I do things like that. Derry would kill me if I got in trouble with the police. Since Mom and Dad were killed in a car wreck, the three of us I lost my place, I'm sorry. The three of us get to stay together only as long as we behave. So Soda and I stay out of trouble as much as we can. And we're careful not to get caught when we can't. I only mean that most greasers do things like that. Just like we wear our hair long and dress in blue jeans and t-shirts, or leave our shirt tails out and wear leather jackets and tennis shoes or boots. I'm not saying that either socias or greasers are better, just that's the way things are. I could have waited to go to the movies until Derry or Soda Pop got off work. They would have gone with me, or driven me there, or walked along, although Soda can't sit still long enough to enjoy a movie, and they bore Derry to death. Derry thinks his life is enough without inspecting other people's. Or I could have gotten one of the gang to come along, one of the four boys Derry and Soda and I have grown up with and consider family. We're almost as close as brothers. And when you grow up in a tight-knit neighborhood like ours, you get to know each other real well. If I had thought about it, I could have called Derry, and he would have come by on his way home and picked me up. Or Two-Bit Matthews, one of our gang, would have come to get me in his car if I'd asked him. But sometimes I just didn't use my head. It drives my brother Derry nuts when I do stuff like that, 'cause I'm supposed to be smart. I make good grades and have a high IQ and everything, but I don't use my head. Besides, I like walking. I about decided I didn't like it much, though, when I spotted that red Corvair trailing me. I was almost 2 blocks from home then, so I started walking a little faster. I'd never been jumped, but I had seen Johnny after four socials got hold of him, and it wasn't pretty. Johnny was scared of his own shadow after that. He was 16 then. I knew it wasn't any use, though, the fast walking. I mean, even before the Corvair pulled up beside me and five socials got out, I got pretty scared. I'm kind of small for 14, even though I have a good build, and those guys were bigger than me. I automatically hitched my thumbs in my jeans and slouched, wondering if I could get away if I made a break for it. I remembered Johnny, his face all cut up and bruised, and I remembered how he cried when we found him, half conscious in the corner lot. Johnny had it awful rough at home, and it took a lot to make him cry. I was sweating something fierce, although I was cold. I could feel my palms getting clammy and the perspiration running down my back. I get like that when I'm real scared. I glanced around for a pop bottle or a stick or something. Steve Randall, Soda's best buddy, had once held off 4 guys with a busted pop bottle, but there was nothing. So I stood there, like a bump on a log, while they surrounded me. I don't use my head. They walked around slowly, silently, smiling. "Hey, Grease," one said in an overly friendly voice. "We're going to do you a favor, Greaser. We're going to cut all that long, greasy hair off." He had on a Madras shirt. I can still see it. Blue Madras. One of them laughed, then cussed me out in a low voice. I couldn't think of anything to say. There just isn't a whole lot you can say while waiting to get mugged. So I kept my mouth shut. "Need a haircut, Greaser?" The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket and flipped the blade open. I finally thought of something to say. No. I was backing up away from that knife. Of course I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms and legs pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees on my elbows, and if you think that doesn't hurt, you're crazy. I could smell English leather, shaving lotion, and stale tobacco, and I wondered foolishly if I would suffocate before they did anything. I was scared so bad I was wishing I would. I fought to get loose and almost did for a second. Then they tightened up on me, and the one on my chest slugged me for a couple of times. So I lay still, swearing at them between gasps. A blade was held against my throat. "How'd you like that haircut to begin just below the chin?" It occurred to me that they could kill me. I went wild. I started screaming. For Soda, Derry, anyone. Someone put his hand over my mouth, and I bit it as hard as I could, tasting the blood running through my teeth. I heard a muttered cuss word and got slugged again, and they were stuffing a handkerchief in my mouth. One of them kept saying, "Shut him up! For Pete's sake, shut him up!" Then there were shouts and the pounding of feet, and the Socius jumped up and left me lying there, gasping. I lay there and wondered what in the world. Then there were shouts and the pounding of feet, and the Socius just jumped up and left me lying there, gasping. I lay there and wondered what in the world was happening. People were jumping over me and running by me, and I was too dazed to figure it out. Then someone had me under the armpits and was hauling me to my feet. It was Derry. "Are you all right, Pony Boy?" He was shaking me, and I wished he'd stop. I was dizzy enough anyway. I could tell it was Derry, though, partly because of the voice, and partly because Derry's always rough with me, even without meaning to be. "I'm okay. Quit shaking me, Derry. I'm okay." He stopped instantly. "Sorry." He wasn't really. Derry isn't ever sorry for anything he does. It seems funny to me that he should look just exactly like my father and act exactly the opposite from him. My father was only 40 when he died, and he looked 25, and a lot of people thought Derry and Dad were brothers instead of father and son, but they only looked alike. My father was never rough with anyone without meaning to be. Derry is 6'2" and broad-shouldered and muscular. He has dark brown hair that kicks out in the front and a slight cowlick in the back, just like Dad's, but Derry's eyes are his own. He's got eyes that are like two pieces of pale blue-green ice. They've got a determined set to them, like the rest of him. He looks older than 20, tough, cool, and smart. He would be real handsome if his eyes weren't so cold. He doesn't understand anything that is not plain hard fact, but he uses his head. I sat down again, rubbing my cheek where I'd been slugged the most. Derry jammed his fists in his pockets. "They didn't hurt you too bad, did they?" "They did." I was smarting and aching, and my chest was sore, and I was so nervous my hands were shaking, and I wanted to start bawling. But you don't just say that to Derry. "I'm okay." Soda Pop came loping back. By then I had figured that all the noise I had heard was the gang coming to rescue me. He dropped down beside me, examining my head. "You got cut up a little, huh, Pony Boy?" I only looked at him blankly. "I did?" He pulled out a handkerchief, wet the end of it with his tongue, and pressed it gently against the side of my head. "You're bleeding like a stuck pig." "I am?" "Look." He showed me the handkerchief, reddened as if by magic. "Did they pull a blade on you?" I remembered the voice. "Need a haircut, Greaser?" The blade must have slipped while he was trying to shut me up. "Yeah." Soda is handsomer than anyone else I know. Not like Derry. Soda's movie star kind of handsome. The kind that people stop on the street to watch go by. He's not as tall as Derry, and he's a little slimmer. But he has a finely drawn, sensitive face that somehow manages to be reckless and thoughtful at the same time. He's got dark gold hair that he combs back, long and silky and straight, and in the summer the sun bleaches it to a shining wheat gold. His eyes are dark brown, lively, dancing, recklessly laughing. Eyes that can be gentle and sympathetic one moment and blazing with anger the next. He has Dad's eyes, but so does one of a kind. He can get drunk in a drag race or dancing without ever even getting near alcohol. In our neighborhood, it's rare to find a kid who doesn't drink once in a while. But Soda never touches a drop. He doesn't need to. He gets drunk on just plain living, and he understands everybody. He looked at me more closely. I looked away hurriedly, because if you want to know the truth, I was starting to bawl. I knew I was as white as I felt, and I was shaking like a leaf. Soda just put his hand on my shoulder. "Easy, Pony Boy. They ain't gonna hurt you no more." "I know," I said, but the ground